Babulal Parihar is a chartered accountant from India, and now his firm name is Lochan and Co. He is a partner in Cambodia, dynamic and qualified profession who has put over 10 years working in professional field of accounting, financing, auditing, taxation, costing, investment, and business consultancy. Mr. Babulal Parihar has experience of working in Cambodia for more than 7 years for clients from varied industries and also for development sectors agencies. Thank you, Babulal sir, for your time and join with us. Over to you.
Thank you, Karthikeyan ji, and thank you, the team of IDEA, for giving such an opportunity to speak about the opportunities in Cambodia. I'm also thankful to our president, Mr. Sandeep Majumdar, for giving this opportunity to have my knowledge on whatever experiences I have gained throughout working in Cambodia for more than last 7 years, working in the field of accounting, taxation, and business advisory. So I'll start with my. So Mr. Karthikeyan, can I control the presentation of me by myself?
Yes, you can do. You are a co-host.
Just allow me a minute to. Can everybody see the screen?
Yeah, we can
Yes,
see.
we can able to see.
Can you please speak? Keep it in the presentation mode.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, great. So that's the topic. Our topic is international business opportunities in Cambodia. I'll start with a small market overview. I'll try to summarize as much as possible about the opportunities and what are the government tax incentives, what are the key advantages of working in Cambodia, or what are the opportunities for having business in Cambodia or with Cambodia. I'll also give a brief about the possible business structuring, legal structuring of business entities, and what are the new reforms about business registrations in Cambodia, and the latest few of the agreements signed by Cambodia, uh, like free trade agreement as well as double tax agreement, and also what is the impact of the RCEP agreement, that where the Cambodia is also the part as a group member of ASEAN. So starting my presentation, I'll start with the market overview. Cambodia is a population of over 16 million, and the economy, even during the COVID time, the economy has grown in last year with 3.6%. During the 2020, it was a difficult time, but though Cambodia maintained its positive growth rate, and in 2020-22, the Cambodia is expecting to have the growth rate of more than 10%. The inflation rate is very much in control when we know that around the whole world, when the inflation is a key issue today, specifically after the Russia-Ukraine war. But Cambodia is least affected with the inflations, though the inflation has increased a bit, but it marginally increased from 2.5% to near about 3.8%. The reason being because the Cambodia is also an agriculture-based economy, wherein Cambodia have its own in-house production of rice, which is the prime commodity for consumptions, and that's why wheat, which is the commodity highly exported from Russia and Ukraine, and Cambodia is not dependent on it. So inflation, though it's affected, but it's not highly affected as the other countries in the world. Cambodia, if I talk about economy, Cambodia has remained among the top 10 fastest growing economy in the world for last more than 2 decades. And it is expected by the World Bank and other agencies that Cambodia will maintain its one of the fastest growing economy in the coming decade too. If I talk about currency, Cambodia is a unique country in the world where 80% of its business transaction domestically are in the United States, in the US dollars. I'm talking about even the domestic transactions, international transactions. We know majority of the transaction in US dollars, but Cambodia, after the Cambodia came out of the Khmer Rouge critical time, Cambodia has adopted the US dollar, dollarized economy. So 80% of the deposits, credits, and the bank in the whole banking system, we have US dollars. Even in the even in the local market, we can have we use majority of our currency as a US dollar. Only for the small transactions, we have the local currency. So it's a dual currency market. We use both the currency simultaneously here. Why the currency is important? Because if we are having the business in US dollars, then it's least affected with the currency exchange and exchange gain or loss. So Cambodia being this US dollarized economy, and very much stable exchange rate, have that benefit of less risk of exchange gain or loss. I mean exchange loss basically. Moving next to the land ownership, Cambodia, though it does not allow the foreigners to own the land, but government have its specifically for agriculture field, government allows the concessional lease land for up to 50 years, where the companies can have their agriculture, though there are terms and conditions, but land ownership is not allowed, but a long period of lease is allowed from the government for the agriculture purpose. If somebody want to own a land, they can form a company, and with minority 49% of share, they can still own the land, but the majority must be held by the Cambodian. Apart from that, for all other businesses, the 100% of ownership is allowed in Cambodia for any business entity, which is one of the unique point as well, because in ASEAN group of ASEAN countries, I did not know if any other country allows 100% ownership to the foreigners in the business in the company. So I'll move to the next presentation. Next slide. Key advantages I'll cover here. Our other speakers, Mr. Sandeep Majumdar, the Excellency from CDC, they will go more deeper into opportunities of investing in Cambodia. I'll try to cover up the key advantages. Cambodia is a part of ASEAN, member ASEAN, and ASEAN have its own free trade agreements between all the 10 countries, wherein the import duty, the agreement came into place since 2010, and that's why the transaction between the ASEAN countries, the import duties has reduced whatever the previously was the import duty. Now the range is only between 0 to 5%. So Cambodia, being the member of ASEAN, it has the advantages of having the trade between the ASEAN countries, wherein the import duty in Cambodia will also be less, as well as if the Cambodia export any commodities into the ASEAN group countries, where Indonesia, one of the highly populated countries, also the part of ASEAN, where if Cambodia exports something, they will also have less import duty in Indonesia. So Cambodia basically have the advantages of exporting several commodities, as if now mostly agriculture, but in the future, with more industrialization, more commodities and more industrial equipments and manufacturing products will be able to they will be able to export to the other ASEAN members. Cambodia is a part of the WTO member since 2004. The third point I have shared with you, that duty-free or preferential export to most developed country. Okay, not only the part of ASEAN, but Cambodia being the least developed country, Cambodia has the advantages of exporting the product from Cambodia to developed country, wherein the import duty will be either zero or will be very minimum. And that is one of the reasons why the garment industry has flourished in Cambodia since last 10-15 years, where more than 1,000 garment factories are working, more than 2 million people directly or indirectly dependent on the garment sector, because the export from Cambodia to the developed country, including US, Europe, Australia, if the export is from Cambodia to those developed countries, there will be minimum duty or zero duty in those developed countries. And this is one of the advantages of being in Cambodia, the businesses being in Cambodia. Favorable business environment. Cambodia is a country which is fair for the investment by foreigners as well as the locals. So the business structuring, the taxations is all similarly applicable. They have no different treatment for the foreigners, foreign investment or the domestic investment. So the taxability, the ownership of the company, and all the business related laws are equally applicable to the locals and the foreigners. So there is no discrimination, which considers a very favorable business and investment environment for the foreigners to invest in Cambodia. Labor cost, at this moment, Cambodia have the minimum labor wages, $194, which is also one of the lowest labor cost. And it's also one of the reasons why, and the population, the last point, I'll combine with the second last point, the Cambodia's population, 65% of the country's population is having age under the 30 years, which is, so which makes the country a youngest country with a low labor cost. So if we combine together, it means that Cambodia have a very efficient and young population, which can be encased by the industries coming to Cambodia by reducing down the cost and becoming a cost competitive company to export in the world. So these are some of the key advantages of investing in Cambodia. I'll move to my next slide. Setting up a business in Cambodia. Setting up business in Cambodia is a very easy things. Previously, when I came in Cambodia in 2015, there were several documentations process, and the things were all into the physical documentations. Since 2018, governments made a new reforms of setting up a business in Cambodia. Even you being in India, you can register a entity in Cambodia by the online mode, wherein any businesses registered in Cambodia, they must need to register with Ministry of Commerce and General Department of Tax and Ministry of Labor and Vocational Training. So these are the key three department and ministries where any businesses, those who want to register in Cambodia, they must have to register with these three ministries and department. So government in this new reforms to make the registration process easy, they make it on an online platform, wherein they give the certification and registration for all these three department and ministries in a one at a one platform. So they make this integration possible. We don't need to go to the each department separately, and the timeline has reduced drastically. Previously, I remember very well when I came Cambodia, initially it may take up to 3 to 5 months of time to get the tax licenses, but these days government make it possible to do this all to make this all licenses from the online platform within only 8 working days. So that is a government commitment to make the things easy for the new businesses coming to Cambodia. And the prices also, the registration prices, I remember previously the formal and all other costs involved may goes up to $2,000, $3,000, but it's now within the range of $1,000. So the cost has reduced down, the procedure part has reduced down, the things has now is much easier as compared to previous time. And the time period, which was the always crucial thing for any investor, they always wanted to know how much time they're going to have for registration, because time is a cost for the investor. And now it has been it has been reduced to only 8 working days, though in a practically it sometimes takes 20 days, 25 days. But one thing is very much assured that within 1 month of time, we can secure all the licenses from Ministry of Tax, Ministry of Commerce and Ministry of Labor. Though later business depends on the nature of the business. If you need to require more licenses, from any relevant ministry, that still we need to apply separately after getting all those licenses. But things has moved much into positive directions, and the things has become much more simpler as compared to the previous time. Moving next to my next slide, structures. What are the different structures are allowed in Cambodia? So the first part is a company, but the important part where what I want to emphasize in the company structure, that Cambodia is one of the country in the ASEAN where the single member private limited company is allowed. It means that an individual can hold 100% shares in the company, and that individual can be a foreigner. So a foreigner can hold 100% share in the company. So you can be the 100% shareholder in the company, and you are not required to have any local shareholder or any local director, which is the requirement in majority of the country. So that makes Cambodia a unique country as well, except if the company is not into the acquisition of land. So then otherwise you don't need to have any local partner or a local director or local shareholder. Only if your company want to have acquisition of land in Cambodia, then you must need to have a 51% shareholder, Cambodian shareholder. So that was important. Then other than that, branch, you can have branch office of your holding company or branch office of your main company in Cambodia. You can have representative office in Cambodia, though representative office does not allow to have operational activity, only this marketing and research activities allowed under the rep office. And the last one is QIP. We have excellency from the CDC, which allows and which grants the QIP status in Cambodia. So QIP status is allowed to eligible investment to the companies who are eligible to get this QIP status, and the eligibility depends on the investment, size of the investment, the sector in which they want to open the company. So there are range of the incentives, the range of the benefits are allowed. I'll also share more about those incentives and the benefits which are being given to the QIP companies. And our other speakers, they will also express more into that. So I'll share that in, about the QIP incentives into my next slide. So please allow me to go to the next slide. Okay, I'll just a brief sharing about the compliance requirement. This is also one of the important point which most of the investors coming to Cambodia, they want to know what are the minimum compliance requirements. So I thought I should also cover this point here. So companies having some specific turnover, let's say turnover more than $1 million or certain amount of more than certain amount of asset size, more than a certain amount of employees, they need the annual audit requirement. But though this audit requirement is mostly for the bigger companies, so the small entities, small and medium enterprises, this audit requirement, there's no audit requirement. There's no requirement to have the audited statements, and there's no need to submit the audited statement to the government. Recently, from this year only, for the small and medium enterprises, the companies also need to submit unaudited financial statements, so which was not there previously. But from this year, for the financial year 2021, all the companies registered in Cambodia, they need to submit their unaudited financial statement if they are not falling under the criteria of audit requirement. Monthly and annual taxation, I want to share a little bit on that part. Cambodia have the requirement, compliance requirement of taxation submission monthly as well as the annual. So annual tax is about the profit tax, but in the monthly tax declaration, you still need to declare about your advance payment of profit tax, about your VAT, about salary tax, about withholding tax. And Cambodia have the taxation on income as well as on the expenditure. So I'm not going more into the technicalities, but I'm just sharing what is the compliance requirement. Monthly, every month also, the tax declaration is required, as well as the annual tax declaration is also required. National Social Security Fund, wherein a certain amount is contributed by employer as well as employee. And this is basically for the benefit of the employee, whereas for dedicated hospitals, the employee can go and have a free treatment. certificate of compliance, which is requirement for QIP to continue the benefits of QIP from the CDC. Certificate of compliance is required on annual basis. Annual declaration of commercial enterprises for any change in the shareholder capital, that compliance is required. You need to update to the Ministry of Commerce. Labor law compliances for quota, government allows only 10% foreigners against in your company. So 10:1 ratio should be maintained. And for all the foreigners, work permit is required. So these are the minimum compliances. Other than that, based on your nature of the business, if you are from pharma industry, you will have certain compliance from Ministry of Health. If you are from construction industry, you will have certain compliances from Ministry of Construction, Urban Planning. So based on your nature of business, you may have further compliances, but these are the minimum compliances required for every entity registered in Cambodia. Okay, I'm moving to the next slide. Custom duty, important point. Cambodia have the custom duty ranging from 0% to 35%. As I previously shared, that Cambodia being the member of ASEAN, and there is a trade agreement between the ASEAN since 2010, where there is a reduced custom duties applied, and the range is between 0 to 5%. If the companies are having the QIP status, then CDC allows exemptions on certain criteria on the custom duty, mostly on the import of the capital goods for formation of your factory or machineries import. They allows 100% exemption from the custom duty. Recently, the tax department and the custom department also started cooperating from last year, June 21, wherein the data between the custom department and tax department is shared to each other, and which makes the process more convenient, fast, and efficient. So as I was sharing that now in the last 2 years, especially 2 to 3 years of time, Cambodia into several department ministries, they are making integrations between the different ministries so that the double submission of data can be avoided, as well as the efficiency and effectiveness is increasing, the cost is reducing. So that is also happening into the custom department. And yeah, so that I was sharing that now even the custom department, they have the system of automated system for custom data. So now the things has becoming online, even the certificate for what we call, so several certificate which we need from the custom department, that can be obtained now from the online platform. So things are moving fast, and government are having integrations, and as well as they are going digital into almost all the ministries. Okay, so moving next, tax incentive, that is my focus point today, and I'll share the incentives into the several different sectors. But starting with QIP, though I'll keep as simple as possible. I understand that the most of the participants will not have not coming from the academic background as I am coming from, so I'll not be more going to the technical, but sharing only in a brief part what are the tax incentives. So recently in the law, in Cambodia, the law on investment has updated, wherein previously whatever the incentives were there, they have the further incentive has been added into that. So if any company is having QIP status, as I previously shared, that based on the nature of the business as well as the size of investment, the QIP status can be allotted from the CDC. So those companies who are having QIP status, they can enjoy the income tax exemptions from minimum 3 years to up to 9 years of the time, which is a very long period of time, though this depends on the sector, investment activities, as well as the period of income. So there are detailed criteria for that, but just briefly sharing that income tax exemptions for QIP status companies are allowed from minimum 3 to 9 years of time. So that was the only previous exemptions, but now in the latest amendment and the latest modifications in the new law on investment, the government has further extended the incentives, that so even after expiring this period of exemptions for next 6 years, you can still you can still have the benefit on income tax, wherein for the first 2 years after this exemption period, you need to pay only 25% of your profit tax. The another next 2 years, you need to pay only 50% of your profit tax. The next further 2 years, you need to pay only 75% of the total tax. So these are the another income tax benefits has been added in the recent development. Advanced tax is the QIP companies are not supposed to have advanced tax payment, and they are also exempted from the export tax, though it is all depends on the further laws and regulation. But I'm trying to cover up the key part only. And the government has also come out with the second option, like the company can choose go with the option number 1, where these are the benefits are allowed to the QIP companies, or they can go to the option number 2, where indirectly benefits, like deducting of some certain expenditures up to 200% of specific expenses, or prepayment tax exemption is allowed, minimum tax exemption is allowed, deduction of capital expenditure through spatial depreciation. So companies are given more flexibility that in which tax incentive option they want to go. Though in my experience, mostly companies prefer to go with the option number 1, which is mostly preferred by the companies working in Cambodia, those who are having the QIP status. So this was for the QIP. They have additional incentives as well. Apart from those incentives we just discussed, they have the incentives, they have the exemption from the VAT if they are using the locally produced inputs or the locally raw material. They allow 150% of deduction on innovative and sustainable activities if the company is having expenditures on research development, human resource, constructions, machineries, or welfare of workers. Then the companies can have 150% deduction on certain those expenditures. So these are additional benefits are also allowed to the QIP companies registered in Cambodia. So that was the incentives about the companies who are having the QIPs. Our Excellency today, from who was the chief guest, he will.
Babulal sir, another 5 minutes.
Okay. I'll try to summarize as early as possible. Quickly, I'll go to special economic zone. Cambodia have more than, I think, 18, nearly 20 special economic zones, and they also have the similar benefits as the QIP companies are having. So this can also be taken advantages. Some of the special economic zones are located in the border of Vietnam, Thailand, as well as in the coastal area of South Cambodia, that is Sihanoukville. So that have the access of the easy port. And if you are looking for the want to explore the business with Vietnam, you can have the companies registered near to the Vietnam border in the special economic zone. So there are many benefits. I'm not going further into it, but I'm just giving you the brief of having the companies registered in special economic zones, where the government gives one-stop solution. The Ministry of Commerce offices and other custom offices, all are there in the special economic zone. So the companies don't have to go to the several department or different places. One-stop solution is provided within the special economic zones. For entertainment industry, those who are into the film productions, they have the benefit into withholding tax, into the tax of income. From education sector, companies or education institutes, government want to promote the technical and professional training institute, and that's why they also provide the exemption about withholding tax and the VAT and all. Agriculture sector, the range of incentives and exemptions are allowed to the agriculture sectors, such as VAT, ease of VAT, and withholding taxes, minimum taxes. SME sectors, for SME sectors, government really want to promote, and they also come out with the specific bank for that and specific portfolio, wherein they are also promoting, they are also giving finances without the collateral to promote and for the expansion and growth of SMEs. And they're also allowing many tax incentives here, which I have just covered in the brief. Cambodia has also signed, this is important, next two slides. I'm on the edge of completion of my presentations. So I'll cover this part. before the last presentation, last slide. Double tax agreement. So 2-3 years back, Cambodia has started aggressively about signing the double tax agreements. They started with Singapore. So now Cambodia has already entered into the double tax agreements with Brunei, China, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, South Korea, Thailand, and Vietnam. And Cambodia is in the process of discussion with further more 6 countries: Philippines, Japan, Turkey, Laos, UAE, and Myanmar. And they're going to have this double tax agreement signed soon. So those and Cambodia is also eager to have this double tax agreement with India. So hopefully in coming time, India will also have double tax agreement with Cambodia, and then the tax, if you have paid in Cambodia, that can be avoided to paid again in India. FTA and RCP, this is 2 key important development in Cambodia. Cambodia has signed the free trade agreement with China, which is already effective from this year, and they are on the verge of signing the free trade agreement with South Korea, and we are expecting that by the end of this year or from the early next year, it will also be effective, wherein majority of those products from import from China or export to China has become duty free. So this is a key things for Cambodia, and which will definitely fuel the growth of the Cambodian economy. Cambodia is also part of RCP. You must be knowing that initially India was also the part of discussion of RCP, though India quit at the last moment. But for remaining 15 countries, 10 countries of ASEAN, and then Australia, New Zealand, South Korea, China, and Japan, these 15 countries of ASEAN, which is for the next 20 years, there's going to Cambodia, Vietnam, and the small countries are going to be the highest advantages from this agreement, where they will be able to supply to the countries which is where the cost is growing, including the countries like South Korea or Japan or China or Indonesia, which is the very big market. So even the World Bank study in February said that East Asia and the Pacific region can reap significant benefit through the further liberalization, and the Cambodia and Vietnam and other low middle income countries gaining the most of the benefit from the RCP. So that was all. Sorry if I take a long time, though I thought that I will conclude in 10 minutes, but I try to cover up only the key point. Thank you for being such a nice audience. And yeah, thank you. Over to you, Karthikeyanji. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Babulal sir, for very, very informative things. Even I noted down a few things that Cambodia is using more on the US dollars in the circulations for the domestic purpose also. It's a very good move. And even as India also having the more youngsters, even Cambodia also having the more youngsters is a very good move. And single window method is the very encouragement, so that investors won't get any hesitate to contact the more offices. And single member company, yes, this is one more the good opportunity. So that they no need to worry about who is the director, whether they are dealing properly or not. And finally, I understand that let hope Cambodia is going to do the DTA, double taxation agreement with India also soon. So we have given very informative things to our participants, Mr. Babulal sir. Thank you very much once again. So participants will go, you please, I think you are already posting your questions. Thank you very much. We can acknowledge as much as possible after completion of our session. So now I would like to request Prasad sir, please introduce Sandeep Majumdar sir, so that Sandeep sir will continue the.
Sure. Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Mr. Sandeep Majumdar is an independent businessman, and he has been in the industry for over 35 years.
I'm sorry, Prasad sir, 1 second.
Mm-hmm.